Hello there and welcome back to the channel. It's Sketch Monkey here, and today we're going to have a look at one of the cars with one of the coolest names of all time, and that would be, of course, the Jensen Interceptor. What we're going to do in this video is, I think you know what we're going to do already. We're going to pop it into Photoshop, modernize the crap out of it, and see how it's going to turn out. First off, let me just explain the background noise that you probably will be hearing in this video. We have 4 foster kittens at the moment, and they are all going insane and having some sort of death match right underneath my chair. And that is probably what you will be hearing from now and then in this video. So, the Jensen Interceptor is a grand touring car which was hand-built in England by Jensen Motors between 1966 and 1976. The Interceptor name had been used previously by Jensen for the Jensen Interceptor made between 1950 and 1957. Jensen had exclusively used glass-reinforced plastic for the fabrication of body panels in the preceding 2 decades, but with this new Interceptor, we saw the return to a steel body shell. The body was designed by an outside firm, and you can guess from what country they were from. Of course, it has that Italian styling, and it was designed by Carrozzeria Touring in Italy rather than in-house staff. The early bodies were built in Italy before Jensen took production in-house, making some subtle body modifications. Jensen Motors used Chrysler V8 engines for the Interceptor with optional manual or torque flight automatic transmission driving the rear wheels through a limited slip differential. In 1970, the Interceptor produced 335 horsepower, but since this engine was detuned by Chrysler for use with regular gasoline and only produced 250 horsepower in 1971, Jensen chose to use the 7,200cc Chrysler engine for 1971. And also for 1971, 2 engines were offered. One produced 305 horsepower, the other 330. Only 232 cars were built with the 440 six-pack and had the distinction of being the most powerful car ever to have been made by Jensen. The Interceptor may have taken some styling cues from the Brasinca Uirapuru. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but here is what that looks like, and you can see that it looks very much like the Interceptor, with a distinctive large curving wraparound rear window that doubled as a tailgate. The car was a GT class sports coupe manufactured in Brazil between 1964 and 1966. And the kitties cannot be quiet at the moment, and I apologize for that. Only 77 examples of the models were ever made because of the high production costs. The original specification for the Interceptor included electric windows, reclining front seats, a wood-rimmed steering wheel, radio with twin speakers, reversing lights, and an electronic clock. Power steering was included as standard from September 1968. The Mark II was announced in October of 1969 with slightly revised styling around the headlamps, front grille and bumper, and revised rear lights. The interior was substantially revised in order to meet US regulations, and air conditioning was an option. The Mark III, introduced in 1971, had a revised front grille, headlamp, finishers, and bumper treatment again. It had GKN alloy wheels and air conditioning as standard, and revised seats. It was divided into G, H, and J series depending on the production year. The 6.3-liter engine was superseded by the 7.2-liter engine in 1971. Jensen had fallen on hard times by 1975 because of the worldwide recession, and because of problems with its Jensen Healey sports car, which led to production of the Interceptor ending in 1976. Later, a group of investors trading under the new Jensen Cars Limited brand name stepped in and relaunched production of the 1970s Interceptor, which was briefly reintroduced in the late 1980s as the Series 4 or S4, which was an updated version of the original Interceptor V8 series, giving a new lifespan for the Jensen brand, and its car production was resumed. The car came back as a low-volume, hand-built and bespoke affair, marketed in a similar way to Bristol with a price of £70,000. Though the body remains essentially the same as the last of the main production run of Series 3, the engine was a much smaller Chrysler-supplied 5.9-liter, which used more modern controls to reduce emissions and still producing about 250 horsepower. In addition, the interior was slightly redesigned with the addition of modern sports front seats as well as a revised dashboard and electronics. This run of a more modernized Interceptor lasted until 1993 with approximately 36 cars built. And while work commenced on developing a much more modern Interceptor called the Series 5 S5 in the 1990s, unfortunately once again the company was forced to close its doors due to financial problems. The Jensen Interceptor came in 4 different versions with 4 different names. One of them is the Jensen FF. And Jensen was one of the first manufacturers to equip a production car with 4-wheel drive in the 1967 Jensen FF, which stands for Ferguson Formula. At the time, it was hailed as a remarkable development, coming also with mechanical anti-lock brakes and traction control. The car is 5 inches or 127 millimeters longer than the Interceptor. Although looking virtually the same, the extra length can be seen from additional side vents ahead of the doors on the front fenders and an additional line in the leading edge of the front wing. Press articles from the time quote drag strip performance when describing the car, and in total 320 FFs were produced. They also made a convertible with a powered soft top, which was introduced in 1974, mainly intended for the American market, but also sold in Europe. And of these, 267 convertibles were made. And even rarer is the coupe version introduced in 1975. Just 60 were made in the 1 year remaining to the company before its demise. The coupe was derived from the convertible and therefore lacked the distinctive rear window of the regular Interceptor. A Jensen specialist based in Banbury, Oxfordshire, England, rebuilds original Interceptor using modern components with a General Motors supplied LS 6.2-liter naturally aspirated or supercharged engine and a 6-speed automatic or manual transmission. And this is called the Jensen Interceptor R. And just like that, the kittens are asleep, just when I'm done with the main audio section of my video. Anyway, let's talk about the Jensen Interceptor modernization here. And what we did, well, we took the basic Interceptor lines. We have a very, very strong shoulder line in the middle, and I don't want to mess that up. It's almost a wraparound line that goes horizontal and doesn't have any curvatures to it. So that's, of course, the main line that we want to keep. And of course, the wraparound rear window. It's a feature that we can't change because it's such a Interceptor feature that if you change that, it all of a sudden becomes a different car. And also the very strong C-pillar. It has a very thick and large C-pillar. That's also something that I wanted to change, keep and update and modernize in some way. And add the black trim around the windows and also the lower part of the car, such as the diffuser, for example, and the part between the rear lights. I wanted to black that out as well. For the wheels, I wanted to keep it classy, almost like Corvette-looking wheels. And when I did this redesign, it reminded me a lot of 2 other redesigns that I've done recently. That is the Corvette Stingray. It looks a little bit like a Corvette Stingray, and it also looks a lot like a Porsche 944 with an extended roofline, especially with a wraparound window. That really reminds me of a 944. But it's funny because those are two different cars from two different continents and from two different eras of car design. So we have the Stingray from the 60s, and then we have the Porsche 944 70s and 80s, and then we have this, which is from 60s and 70s. So all of these cars kind of have a lot of similar features to them, and it's kind of interesting to think about that the wraparound window seems to have been such a huge trend in car design back in the day. So anyway, I wanted to keep those main features of the Interceptor, modernize everything else, the wheels, the body panels, the rear lights, the graphics, the diffuser and the trim, and add a side mirror to this car, and also add some cool air intake or outlet on the side, because the original Interceptor had such a pronounced air outlet right there on the front fender, so we want to add that to this car as well. And that's about it. That's the modernization of the Jensen Interceptor. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button and also subscribe if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed these kind of videos. I'm the Sketch Monkey, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.